Hi, everyone. Welcome back to part two of our episode. Hey,
Hey,
y'all!
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm out of the closet, you guys, for part two.
So thank you guys for returning. We still have my uncle here, of course, my Tio Luis. Thank you for continuing to stay on for
Yes.
part two. And Cindy obviously has relocated. So we're going to go ahead and kick off and start where we left off. So I stand corrected. It was a year and a half, the Supreme Court decision to remove the ban on same-sex marriage. It happened in June of 2015, so a year and a half after John and I were married. Still an amazing moment in my life. Like, I never thought or planned out that I was going to have the same rights as heterosexuals.
As breeders.
The breeders, as I call them. So it was just amazing to have my uncle there, my family there, and just all of it part of history, really, if you think about it. So
yes, Ricky, you were part of history.
I'm a historical girl.
Okay, you are. You're
Quit.
a fucking. You're a monument, girl.
Shut up, bitch. She's such a bitch. And then she was getting mad at me because I was teasing her earlier.
Well, one of the things that's you were married on an Indian reservation. And
yes, I got married in a casino.
And they have the concept of what they call Verdash, a male and female, someone who is two spirits.
Oh, wow.
So that is a revered position in Indian culture, a Native American culture. Because they have the spirit of the male and the female.
Oh, gotcha. Within one person.
Within one person.
Okay.
That's crazy.
And so they are a lot more lenient about allowing a gay marriage.
More understanding too.
Because they do understand that.
Right. That's cool.
Yes.
Hey, so can we shift gears a little bit, because I do want to talk about the chart that your Tio sent us on generational differences. So I took I was part of this class at the bank when I was still at the bank, where it talked about generational differences so that we could understand how to manage our team, our associates.
Yep.
And I want to say that this is the same chart that was shared. So the biggest thing that I got from that meeting was how different generations handle money. So like if I go to the chart, it shows like the traditionalists, we go to like money, dealing with money. They set money aside, they pay cash, and they save. Baby boomers, they buy now, they pay later, because, they were part of that era where
they
didn't have the money. Right. Well, they didn't have the money to buy now. So they just kind of kept that going. Generation X is the cautious conservative, again, save, and the millennials earn to spend.
Yep.
So millennials have a bad reputation right now, just because, millennials.
Yes.
But I'm a millennial, so the age is 1981. If you were born between 1981 and the year 2000, you are considered a millennial. So Ricky, you're there too. I don't know why you thought you were.
Yeah, no, I'm Gen X for sure. The reason why I call myself Gen X is because I feel it's just like a zodiac sign, right? Or the horoscope, right? Like there's a cusp. And I'm so much on the edge of that. 81, I was born in 82. But I really feel when I look at that chart that my uncle sent us, I tend to sway more to the Gen X side. Don't get me wrong, I still am millennial, and I don't know what you would call somebody on the cusp of that, like an exennial. I don't know, but yeah, like I feel like I have a little bit of both worlds, and I think a lot of like the class of 2000 and like that.
I don't know. I think that you're definitely in the millennial, because this is what it says. It says that you were brought up in the digital media, child-focused world. You just said that you were chiflado. You were brought up.
That's a Mexican thing that has nothing to do with millennial.
Okay. That's not true. My mom is a Mexican and she was not brought up as a child focused. Like that was absolutely
No,
not.
I'm talking about being a mama's boy.
But that's what I'm saying because you're a millennial.
Child focus, yeah.
Right. That's child focused.
Okay. And what else?
So because my mom, so you are familiar with school shootings, terrorist attacks, AIDS, 9/11.
Nope.
You typically
none of that happened to me, Cindy.
I didn't say it happened to you, but you
I wasn't in high school when 9/11 happened. I was already living in Austin.
I didn't say you were in high school. It's just you grew up with that as a fear.
No, I get it. But we all did.
And then typically grew up as children of divorce. They hope to be the next great generation to turn all the wrong that they see in the world today. You just talked about making history. They grew up more sheltered than any other generation as parents strive to protect them from the evils of the world. Came of age in a period of economic expansion. Yes. Kept busy. You were in the band and all kinds of stuff as a kid. First generation of children with schedules. I think you are definitely a millennial. I don't care what you say.
Let me just clarify on that real quick. And I don't want to make it about me because
okay.
But
then it wouldn't be our show.
My mom did not shelter me from anything. I literally was an adventurous person that went out and did shit I probably wasn't supposed to be doing. My mom was still the typical mom that just, no, mijo, don't do that. Like, get mad, da, da, da. So it's not, and I was a very...
So she sheltered you. She tried to shelter you. It wasn't like in the 60s when kids went out and had no idea about child abductions. You knew what could happen to you and you still did it.
I am lucky I didn't get abducted. I did a lot of crazy shit with my mom sheltering. Like I would come home late and my mom would be...
Tio Luis, can you please interject here because you know...
Do you think I'm a Gen X or a millennial? Because I really do not think I'm a millennial.
I think you identify, but in reality, you are a millennial.
Okay.
So it's one of the things that where you try to identify whether it's with me, your mom, or others who are from the other generation. And that's maybe because you were taking on certain responsibilities as an older child.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that these influences are not part of you.
Right.
Okay.
You can't help it. Like you can't help the way that your mom lived in her generation and how that impacted you. That you have no control over that. And what I mean by being sheltered is, you know, whenever my mom was growing up, she wasn't told, no, you can't do this because there's evils in the world, and she still did it. Right. She wasn't told that there was evils in the world. She was just, you know, sent, you know, and then like my grandpa was really strict on her, whatever. But like your mom told you, you cannot do this because there's bad in the world, and you still did it. But like in past generations, you didn't share that with your children. You didn't tell your children that there were bad people out there.
Okay. Then in that sense, yes, it makes sense. I guess the reason why I get so crazy about Gen X and millennials, because millennials have a bad name.
Reputation, right?
And number two, my nieces and nephews are all millennials, and they think I am the oldest fart in the world. Right. I get a lot of shit for making TikToks from my younger nieces, nephews, and cousins. So can you...
Same for my daughter.
But I never did that to my uncles or my aunts. I never shamed them for being older than me. I respected that, and I actually looked up to them and tried to like absorb some of that, like, I don't know.
Wisdom?
Yeah, wisdom, if you will. And like, but I don't get that from my millennial nieces and nephews and cousins. You know what I mean? Like Julian and DJ and like all of them, like they look at me like, oh, you're old. Why are you trying to be on Instagram? Why are you trying to be on TikTok?
Come on, DJ.
Instead of looking up to me the way I look up as my uncle. No, wait, I'm making my point real quick. The way I look up at my uncles and aunts, and specifically my Uncle Luis, I don't get that from my millennial nieces, nephews, and cousins. See what I'm saying? So it feels different. Like they don't accept me in their millennial category. So I don't feel like I'm a millennial. Does that make sense, Theo?
It does, but I want you to make your circle bigger.
Okay.
Because you're looking at...
Are you trying to say I'm fat?
No, you're looking at
Yes,
the
you don't
family.
fit. You don't fit
You're not looking at
the rest of the world.
society as a whole.
Gotcha. Making it about me again, like I always.
Yeah. Well, you've got to realize that the school system that you went through
Yeah.
had dealt with 9/11, uh,
School shootings.
the television, the internet, and all these things. I just remember the loud, piercing sound because we had to wait for the telephone line to be free in order to get online.
Oh my gosh.
I remember
yes.
the AOL
AOL.
sound and the dial-up.
Yeah.
And so those kind of things, what was happening in the news, what was happening in education, what was happening in
Right.
church. Mega churches started to come into being during your generation. So that's a reaction to your needs as a millennial.
The next generation coming up.
But
yeah,
when
I get it.
you start talking about your individual family and your cousins and stuff, then you start getting into your culture rather than into your societal environment. And so,
which is what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So the list has more to do not about your nuclear family, but has to do with society as a whole.
Okay, that makes sense. But that's a good point, Cindy. I'm glad you brought that.
So let's keep going. So there's for core values for millennials: achievement, you; avid consumer, you.
Both of you.
Civic duty, confidence, diversity, extreme fun, high morals, highly tolerant, highly competitive, like personal attention, self-confident, sociability, members of global community, most educated generation, extremely techno-savvy, extremely spiritual, want
you
things
convinced
now,
me, damn it. Shut up.
optimism, realism, street smarts. Okay, and then
the one that okay, I will agree with you, and only because of the work ethic. This is totally you and I. Ambitious. What's next? Multitasking, tenacity, entrepreneurial. Like that's us.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Merged families, coddled kids. You gotta. That's the worst. I hate whenever you get participation awards. Those are the worst.
Well, it's the idea. What was that movie where Barbara Streisand was the mother and
and then Seth Rogen, and they do a road trip together.
Yes. Well, their son has a 4th place ribbon, last place. All these awards for even having participated.
Oh, Meet the Parents. You're talking about Ben Stiller and then Barbara Streisand and
Meet the Fockers.
Dennis Hoffman.
Meet the Fockers.
Exactly.
Yeah, Meet the Fockers.
Yeah.
They're the Fockers. Barbara Streisand. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for real.
Where they just acknowledge every little achievement. And
like the YMCA, like you don't get trophies if you win first place. That's so dumb.
Yeah, everybody's a winner.
Well, I was really upset because I had to take this for real estate. You have to take legal update 1 and 2 every 2 years, and so I took it a couple weeks ago because it was super cheap. Normally it's like $200 a class, and I did both for like 90, I think. Anyways.
Wow.
So I was all paying attention, taking notes and everything because there was going to be an exam at the end or whatever. And so then once the exam came along, I was like reading my notes and blah, blah. And then when we were done, I went back to the chat and I was like, when do we know our grade? And he's like, oh, you don't get a grade. If you take the exam, you get credit. And I'm like, what? I got a fucking participation award? What is this? I was so annoyed.
There's some certifications like that in project management that you think you have to take an exam. No, the teacher stays back and they make sure that you pass it and they stay there.
No,
and you have questions, just call me over.
No, I hate it.
That's so funny.
So anyways, Luis, going back to the generational differences chart, what's the biggest, because being in the school, district and seeing the different types of kids coming in and that kind of thing, what's been the biggest difference from the time that you were in middle school and just the education, like the material and how it was presented to the students, and then now, like, what's been your biggest frustration and difference?
Well, something that always loomed large is that in the 1960s, President Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis, we used to have drills where you toss the desk over towards the windows, because when the atomic bomb would explode, all the glass is going to come flying in.
Yeah.
And so you tip over your desk and you crawl underneath.
Wow.
You know, just the idea that we're going to survive an atomic bomb is ridiculous. So that is in the 1960s. So in middle school, the Vietnam War had begun. And so there was another war. And it, you know, President Nixon was going to be running and be elected for his 4-year terms prior to me coming to high school. And so I graduated from high school with a president resigning because he was going to be impeached.
Wow.
So
that's
the
cool.
things, the politics at that time, the riots, the Stonewall in New York, or the riots in California, which were racial, the Black Panthers showing up with guns in California to protect Black people while they're voting, and then Reagan passing laws
for immigration,
on gun restrictions,
and immigration too. I mean, my parents, that's how they got their green cards.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was a very volatile. So for me, it was not computerized. Now you can get a text message, we're meeting at the Capitol, let's all go march. It was word of mouth.
And then to think that, you know, these huge riots and presentations showed up just from word of mouth. That's crazy. Well, so whenever 9/11 hit, I remember,
in high school, right?
I was in high school, and I remember, like, you know, getting ready for school or whatever, and then I listened to Kid Craddock in the morning, and then it happened, you know, and I just didn't understand how serious it was. Like, I don't think anybody really did. We really didn't. I mean, we had radio and the TV, but we didn't have like the smartphones and stuff, so we didn't really understand what was going on. And I still went to school, and I remember being in my music appreciation class, and the teacher, she just told us all to be quiet, and she had the radio on, and she was just like in tears. And we were like, why? I mean, what's wrong? Like, we just go to war. Who cares? You know, because we didn't know. And she was just crying because her, you know, being brought up in all of these different wars, her dream was for her children to never see the world where there's a war. And that's now gone. And she was just upset. And I will never, ever forget like how impactful it was to her. And I just did not understand. Like, I was just like, okay, you know, because you watch movies and stuff and you're like, whatever, that's like, but I didn't understand the economic, you know, impact or any, like, I didn't understand.
It's hard to, as a student, a young kid, because I remember I mentioned the Cuban Missile Crisis. Well, years later, the teacher comes in crying, and we all get sent home because the president has been assassinated.
Yeah.
And as a kid, we're thinking, woohoo, school's out.
Right.
But because you see your teacher crying, you don't celebrate. You're just like, what on earth just happened? Like, oh my God.
Right.
And you're going home, and everybody in the neighborhood is watching TV.
Yeah.
Nobody does not have their television or their radio on.
Yeah.
And so it was when I was working at the University of New Mexico, when 9/11 happened, and my boss is saying, "You still need to work."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "We can't go out there. I can't go out and do union organizing to try to recruit members when the Twin Towers just fell."
Yeah.
But then I got, as a union organizer, came to my mind that evening. The next day, I bought all the ribbons and all the little pins so that you can have a little pin.
Yeah.
And I met at the University of New Mexico, where there's the duck pond and there's this clock
Yeah.
that's there. And I started passing out a little card that says, "The people united will never be defeated,"
Wow.
which is something that you chant as a union organizer.
Yeah.
And had the pin, and so the students were coming to get that, and so I was organizing.
Mm-hmm.
I helped organize a prayer vigil that the next
Wow.
day.
Because you had been through that. You knew what was
Yeah.
coming. Like
Yeah.
you knew what this event was gonna bring.
Yeah, and people needed to have a symbol. They need
Right.
something.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so if you remember, everybody started wearing ribbons.
The yellow.
The yellow ribbons. And
Yeah.
so I was handing them out,
Mm-hmm.
and the stores sold out of ribbon
Yeah.
material.
Well, just like this last with coronavirus, the toilet paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I had to go into work at Eckerd's. And so we were working at Eckerd's and like nobody came in and we were just kind of wait. And then there were 2 gas stations next to us. And then all of a sudden these gas stations are full and the price goes up to like $20 an hour, which I think they just recently settled for that, price gouging that happened during that time. I think they just recently settled. But yeah, it was like
$20 a gallon.
Yep.
I don't remember gas. Like I know gas went up, but not that much.
Yep. It was $20 a gallon at the right in front of the Eckerd's where I worked. And it was an Exxon. I think Exxon was the biggest violator for price gouging.
Wow.
For that kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, it was Exxon and it was like, and then the line was just wrapped around and I've just never understood like, when was it? I think it was whenever one of the hurricanes, either Maria or Harvey hit Houston. They like everybody in DFW was going crazy because one news anchor said that it's going to affect our oil, and then so gas stations were running out of gas, and I'm like, can everybody just calm down? Like now we're out of gas because you guys are all going and doing like just like with the toilet paper.
Right. Well, one of the fascinating generational differences, because I've seen tragedies and stuff. When I heard about coronavirus in China, I had already bought my toilet paper. I had already started to stock my food because I knew
what was
from
coming.
Past experience what was coming. So yeah, but it's only 2 of us. So, I just need the big.
Oh, yeah, same here. Like we didn't have to.
It's going to last. And someone says, well, why is this happening? And I pointed out is that most people use toilet paper at work. They go to the bathroom at work, not at home, because they're eating at work. They're going to the bathroom after the caffeine, that makes you pee or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you really don't use a lot of toilet paper at home. If you're the worker, you do it at work. Now that you're stuck at home, you're going to need more toilet paper. And the restrooms at work are not being used anymore.
Was there something similar to this? Because I'm trying to remember. I was probably about in 3rd or 4th grade when the Gulf War started. When I think the first Bush was in office, right? And now I think about it, was 5th grade. Now I remember. I don't remember anything like that happening in the United States with that war or any of that issue. Because I feel like it's different. Like when I'm hearing Cindy talk about 9/11, I had a different experience than what she's experienced. I remember being terrified. I knew what was going on, and I went to work at Target.
Right.
And it was the same shit, but I was scared. I didn't want to go. But like, I also remember being just as terrified in 5th grade when we went to war with Iraq. And I remember going with my cousins, Monica and Abram, to a movie, and I could not even enjoy the movie because I was sitting there thinking, what if Saddam Hussein launches a missile or some bomb and it lands on, and like, I was terrified that we were going to be attacked by Iraq. I mean, I was being naive back then. I didn't know how powerful our country and our army was.
I think that has a lot to do,
like,
Ricky, with
it wasn't like blasé, like
just,
the way you said.
but it's because you've always had this like severe anxiety and worry.
So it had nothing
like,
to do with my generational difference.
I don't know, because and I've always been the opposite, because I'm like, I'm not gonna sit here and add more stress to myself when I don't have any personal control. Like, what are you gonna do if a missile attacks? Like, you're done.
It's generational though. I think it's just
I don't. No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's generational. I think it's just the way that we are built, because you've always been very dramatic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you
touch my pearls. What?
You have, like, you know, and then you just worry. You worry about so much, and I've just been the opposite, because I'm like, it'll work itself out. Like, I didn't worry about this coronavirus pandemic. Like, I have not been worried about it. I see it. I know it's real. Like, I don't take away from that. I know a lot of people have died. Like, I get it. But as far as me, you know, I didn't rush to the grocery store. I don't live in fear. I didn't rush to the store to get toilet paper because I'm like, you know, like, I'll borrow some if I need. We never ran out of toilet paper. We never ran out of food. There was one time when I wanted to make ramen with ground pork, and there was no more left at the Walmart that I went to. So then I had to go to Kroger and pay more for my ground pork. And like, that was really the only inconvenience that I've had. But like, I'm not scared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that the
if I die, I die.
Are different now, because you have Instagram, you have Twitter, you have Facebook, you have.
Yeah.
I joined Facebook because I could see my family, but now it's become so political. It's either politics or food.
I know.
You know, Twitter is becoming a little bit different since I forget something closed down that people used to have all these sexual things on their Tumblr, I think, or something like that.
That was Tumblr.
Oh.
And then it got bought out by some Christian, and so they don't allow it. And so now Twitter is becoming very racy. And
so is Instagram.
Yeah, and so we've even got text messages that if you want to follow someone, where in the past we weren't inundated. So even though we had the H1N1 or AIDS or whatever, you have to remember President Reagan would not talk about AIDS.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
So there was this idea that you don't talk about it. So it was not in the news, but everybody knew someone
that was impacted.
Direct.
It was a pandemic for gays, basically. It's so like you can compare it to Corona now. People care more about it because it's impacting mainstream. But back then, gays were dying and the government would not pay attention.
But they made it a gay thing, but then it's not like just gays have sex with gay people. They have sex with people who claim to be straight.
Well, and just like with the coronavirus, people are saying that it's racial too, like that, you know, it only impacts
diabetes and all the preconditioned crap that makes you more susceptible to the coronavirus. And we got 10 more minutes. Dude, this crazy. We need to upgrade, Cindy. Come on.
Yes. What happens
is your black card, girl.
Is that blacks and Hispanic, you know, people of color are affected. The death rate is higher, also because the care for them is not there.
So my sister said
it has to do with the wealth and class too. If you think about it, the more money you have, the more access you have to medicine and healthcare and nutrition and exercise, whatever, you know. So like it's a
Well, my sister said that culturally, you know, if you're Black or Hispanic, you don't go to the doctor until you're literally dying. And so when it comes to the coronavirus, like you wait until then, there's not very much they can do.
The doctor, and
Right.
the Vicks and the 7-Up isn't working.
Yeah, and then the huevo, you know.
But what happens is they don't get the ventilators. They don't get the care that you would in a suburb or a white hospital. They go to the university hospital or whatever. They don't go to the special hospitals. They're just not taken care of.
Well, even here, it's the county hospital that has all the COVID, like they're the ones that are trained to treat the COVID patients. And even so, like, that's where my sister works. And she said, like, it's just historically, culturally, whatever, if you're Black or Hispanic and you have a cold, you're not going to go to the doctor. You're not going to go until you're very, very sick. And in a normal situation, a normal virus, that's fine. Yeah. But whenever it comes to it attacking your, you know, your respiratory system and everything, like you need to go as soon as you see symptoms so that you can get on that ventilator.
And I think economically it's because they have the jobs where they don't have the insurance.
Right, but this is county hospital. This is the county.
No, I'm saying
I think there is a little bit of ignorance too on it. We're taught not to.
Right.
I'll put you some Vicks.
Right.
Palmeda, or I'm probably saying the wrong words, but
I don't know.
I'll do a pomade for that cut you have, or
get some arnica. Put some arnica on it.
I think the point I was trying to make is that it is the Hispanics and the Blacks who have the service jobs that pay hourly.
Oh yeah.
And so for that reason, they can't afford to go to the hospital.
Gotcha.
Because they don't have.
You can't take time off of work.
Or don't have the insurance.
Right.
Yeah.
I get you.
To take off work is to lose. And so
you're right.
It is the poor and the job poor, the people who might have 2 jobs or 3 jobs that have the high risk.
You're right.
I think one of the statistics that I remember is that 1 in 20 people are going to be affected or die from COVID-19. You know 20 people. I know 20 people. And so I've already experienced knowing 2 people who passed away from it.
Oh, no.
So, you know, statistically, you're going to know someone as well. All of us are going to be touched by it one way or another, because at some point we're going to know about someone, whether it's through the church, through the school, through my job.
It's kind of like cancer, right?
Yeah.
And heart disease. It's like everything else.
Yeah. So,
am I the only one drinking?
No, this is my 3rd drink.
I want to drink. Okay. My husband has failed to bring me a refill. I'm about to scream. Hello.
Yeah.
But also, we want to stay sober to have this conversation with you.
What?
I said.
Yeah.
I said also we want to stay sober to have this conversation with you.
Oh, absolutely. I had actually started pre-gaming with him with my Tio before we had the show, so we were already a little good. So I'm good right now. But I do want to kind of wrap up because we have 5 minutes left in our part 2, and obviously we will probably invite you back, Tio. This has been
absolutely. I love this
show, and I enjoy every time I get to visit with my Tio. And I honestly can say that he's influenced me in a very positive way. Between him and my uncle Raul, another.
Ooh, he's trying to say he has another favorite uncle.
Well, my uncle passed away when I was in middle school.
Oh, okay, so
but they've been.
He died of AIDS. He's one of the
AIDS, and that's
man.
Statistics.
You know these stories. You're my friend. I've told you that.
You haven't told me. No, you haven't.
Passed away of AIDS, and like the way the family shifted after that happened is why I'm so blessed to be accepted, and like I don't get a lot of the shit that most Hispanic families
You
get.
didn't tell me that.
Okay, well, we need to
Yeah.
get drunk and I'll give you the story later. Anyways, so what I'm getting at is that a lot of my influences as an adult gay man comes from my uncles,
Mm-hmm.
not just the gay ones. I have a lot of influential uncles, from Jesus to Raul to Rafa. I mean, all of them have been awesome, right? And taught
Yeah.
me
You get to see the growth pattern. Even my mom, who was very anti-gay,
Mhm.
after Raul passed away, she was like telling her daughters, "Be kind to
Yeah.
Irma.
Yeah.
That's
Don't make the mistake that I made." You know.
my grandmother actually was very scared of my uncle having AIDS. And I remember hearing stories, not just from you, Luis, but from Ralph as well, that my uncle Raul, and when he was sick, like felt very isolated in that, like just sharing a soda can with him made him feel better, because he,
Oh.
you know, like my uncle Raul had AIDS, and so Ralph would go and get his soda can and like drink from it, and like I don't care, right? That's what my uncle Ralph tells me. I wasn't around for that, but like I imagine how that felt, living in a home with your parents and like not fully being accepted, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. But then,
Well, the same things are happening now, where they tell you COVID-19, get their own plate, their own fork and knife, their own glassware, and stuff like that. Those
yeah,
are the kind of things that happen with gay people. Have their own set of cutleries
Yeah.
or
Well,
plates
and
or
even
whatever.
let's take it back. Let's take it back even to the colored people. You couldn't.
what?
The colored people.
Mhm.
You couldn't
People of
use the
color.
same bathroom. People of color. I'm sorry.
I thought you were gonna go like way back, like leprosy or something. I was like,
Yeah.
Well, that too. I mean,
Yeah,
there's always
exactly.
been something. There's always been a group of people that are isolated, and people are afraid to touch them physically because it's contagious. So, you know, being gay was contagious. I couldn't drink after your drink because then that would be gay.
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, people of color, you couldn't even sit down in the same
But that was more
chair.
discrimination, like that. You can't catch.
No, I think, well, I agree that it was discrimination, but I think a lot of it was feeding these people to think that it's like they're dirty or whatever. But anyways, we have less than a minute left, and I don't want to get into the racism stuff.
But no, I just want to take like the last few like moments that we have just to honor my uncle and thank him for being such a great role model, and just teaching me not just, you know, about culture and how to be like, just anyways, what I'm getting at is like he's been a very good positive influence in my life, and I don't have a lot of positive male figures in my life, so that was really awesome to have him you know, be there even if he was a visiting uncle, and it turned into a more beautiful relationship as I got older, and he taught me about opera and drinking wine and just culture, and just
Yeah.
and I'm just glad that you are you know, here with me and Cindy, and you're here. I can't even
Yay.
think of words. I'm like speechless.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Love you
joining
so
us,
much.
Thank
Tio
you,
Luis. Like, we're going to
Cindy.
have you back for sure.
All righty. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you guys for joining. Remember to subscribe and share our posts. And thank you guys, as always, for joining. Mwah. Hey, yeah.
Hey.